Today's video is brought to you by Sony's Ghostbusters Afterlife. Ghostbusters Afterlife, the long-awaited sequel to the beloved series, is finally coming to theaters Friday, November 19th. Sony has just released Ghostbusters Afterlife Scare, an augmented reality game where you can hunt something strange in your neighborhood. What better way to get a hype for the movie than to go busting some ghosts? The game is best enjoyed in a wide-open area, so you can play it outdoors. You can capture ghosts using the gear you know and love from the series. The first 2 episodes are free to play, and if you like them, you can get the last 6, which are pay to play. This is the perfect opportunity for Ghostbusters fans from around the world to relive their childhood paranormal fantasies in a fun, modern way via augmented reality. If you want to download the game or want more information, I'll put links below the video in the description. A big thanks to Sony's Ghostbusters Afterlife for sponsoring the video. Play the game, and don't forget to go see Ghostbusters Afterlife this Friday in theaters. Here's 5 animated shows you probably forgot about. Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light. With the successes of shows like Masters of the Universe, Transformers, and G.I. Joe, American animation studio Sunbow worked with Hasbro, Marvel Productions, and TMS Entertainment to make Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light. They were hoping to create another show that was more or less based on a toy line where they could introduce new toys within the show and sell them to the captive audience of children. The first episode aired on September 20th, 1987. The show is about the planet Prismos. Prismos was a highly advanced planet of technology until one day, the 3 suns of the planet aligned and the radiation shut down all technology on the planet like a massive EMP blast. Without technology, how else can they survive? By reverting to the old ways of magic, of course. The planet was split into 2 warring factions. The good guys, the Spectral Knights, and the bad guys, the Darkling Lords. The show ran for 13 episodes and was canceled on December 13th, 1987. It seemed like they were hoping for the toys to be a hot-ticket item for Christmas, and had them on the market right around when the show was canceled. While the show had an interesting theme, the toys were kind of underwhelming. Each character was a basic figure that had a holographic sticker on it that would be its animal totem, which gave them unique powers based on whatever the animal was. In the cartoon, some of the characters could transform into their animal totem, while with the toy, you could just flail them around and make animal noises. With enough imagination as a kid, you could make it work. It didn't really matter now, though. With the show canceled, the toys sat on the shelves, and the whole thing was mostly forgotten. There was a planned second wave of toys, but that was scrapped when the show was canceled. In November of 1987, Marvel released a comic based on the show as a bi-monthly series. With the show being canceled, they also killed the comic in September of 1988 after 6 issues. Decades later, history was in the process of repeating itself. The Transformers and G.I. Joe movie franchises were pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office. Although Transformers was more successful here than G.I. Joe. Anyway, since cinematic universes were all the rage, Hasbro was looking to start one by combining their other toy lines. The universe was going to be a huge endeavor combining Mask, ROM, Micronauts, G.I. Joe, and Visionaries. However, with Transformers sales dwindling and the concept of cinematic universes losing much of their luster, the idea was put on indefinite hiatus. In 2004, the complete series was released on DVD in the UK. It's since gone out of print and is very expensive for the 2-disc set. Sectaurs. Sectaurs Warriors of Symbion was, like a lot of 80s cartoons, a combined effort of toy line, comic book series, and cartoon. This one was a little different, though. The comic and toy line came first, and then about a year later was the cartoon. The first episode aired on September 15th, 1985. It was intended as a miniseries that retold the stories from the comics, although in a very scaled-down fashion. The series was about the planet Symbion. Due to a failed lab experiment, the planet mutated into a hellscape with huge insects. There's the good insect people, led by Prince Dargon, and the evil insect people, led by General Spydrax, who started the Terror Troops. The lore and history was much greater in the comic, but the show did what it could to tell as much of the story as possible within each 22-minute episode. The show had some great voice talent, with Arthur Burghardt, Peter Cullen, Dan Gilvizin, Tress MacNeille, B.J. Ward, Neil Ross, and of course, Frank Welker. The show was helmed by the studio Ruby Spears Productions. They had hoped if the miniseries did well, they'd continue with a full series. The toys each came with a mini-comic that spotlighted the character or playset it came with. Beyond the comics, they had Sectaurs storybooks and coloring books. The merch machine was running full steam ahead with notebooks, buttons, fan club packs, and more. Despite all this, the series fizzled. It's rumored the toys were too expensive, and the cartoon didn't catch on. Plus, it seemed the comics didn't sell well either. The last episode aired on October 12, 1985, after the fifth and final episode of the miniseries. The series may have been a little too dark for kids. Look at the intro, with people melting and the world mutating into a bug-infested disaster. Spidrax's giant flying spider is nightmare fuel. The toys were from COLECO. The figures were bigger than a lot of the other toys at the time, which was to match the size of their insect steeds. Many of the Sectaurs came with a companion they could ride. In a unique spin for the toys, the companions were hand puppets, so they could mount the Sectaur on the back and animate them into battle. It was something that, to my knowledge, hadn't been done before. It added an element of immersion to the toys beyond just knocking them around. While the show was very short-lived, it still had its fans. In 2018, there was a Kickstarter that was aimed at restarting the toy line. The first Kickstarter was successful, and they were able to make the first 6 figures. They tried to launch another crowdfunding for Wave 2 in early 2021, but it wasn't successful. Zika Toys announced that they are done with the franchise and have moved on to other toy lines. I'm sad because I had no idea, and I would have totally put in for a new Spidrax figure. There's now a website, Sectaurs.com, that has a wealth of information about the series, the toy line, and lots of gorgeous artwork. It even has scans of the comic series. The miniseries is available on YouTube, but the show has never been officially released on DVD. There's copies out there, but I'm pretty sure they're just VHS rips. If you want to know even more, there's a documentary called The Story of the Sectaurs, which is on both Amazon Prime and YouTube. Centurions. Centurions was a sci-fi animated show from Ruby Spears. What set this apart was legendary comic artist Jack Kirby and Gil Kane helped with the design and concepts for the show. Animation director Norio Shioyama designed the characters. Like Sectaurs, Centurions started with a 5-part miniseries. Unlike Sectaurs, the miniseries did well, and the show was picked up for a full season. The first episode of the miniseries aired on April 7, 1986. The first episode of Season 1 aired on September 22, 1986. The animation was handled by Nippon Sunrise's Studio 7 in Japan. Sunrise was responsible for tons of anime, from Cowboy Bebop to Inuyasha. The show takes place in the not-too-distant future. An evil cyborg scientist called Doc Terror and his army of cyborgs are trying to take over the world and turn its inhabitants into robot slaves. A group of highly trained specialists who wear these sort of mech suits that allow them to plug in all sorts of weapons to help them fight Doc Terror. This was a precursor to the extreme 90s because in order for the Centurions to join with their power systems, they have to shout, "Power Extreme!" For some reason, the last 5 episodes, starting with episode 61, was a miniseries unto itself that was shown out of order. It was written to introduce 2 new Centurions, Rex Charger and John Thunder, not to be confused with Johnny Thunders. The problem was, Rex and John were already on the show starting way back in episode 42. So these 2 new guys just appear as part of the team, and then weeks later we see their introduction and no one knows who they are. The toys were, for lack of a better description, like a futuristic Mr. Potato Head. You had your action figures with various slots where you'd plug in whatever gizmo you wanted. It made the toys very mix and match, which naturally encouraged kids to bug their parents to buy them more figures. The last episode aired on December 12, 1986. Even though it was only 1 miniseries and 1 season, it still ran for a total of 65 episodes. That's a crazy amount of episodes for 1 season. To put it into perspective, Transformers ran for 4 seasons, but only had 98 episodes. The original 5-part series was released on DVD in 2011. They split Season 1 into 2 sets, but at least the full series is available. Starcom. Starcom, the U.S. Space Force, is an animated series based on the motorized toys from COLECO. It was produced by Deke, and distributed through the short-lived Coca-Cola Telecommunications, or CCT. The first episode aired on September 20th, 1987. The series was created not only to help sell the toys, but also to get kids interested in the NASA space program. The show is about the American Astronaut Brigade fighting off invasions by the Shadow Force, led by the evil Emperor Dark. Interesting that instead of making a series that showed the wonders of the space program as a way to get the interest of kids, they made the show similar to so many other shows at the time. A group of elite technicians fight a mysterious enemy. I imagine any kid interested in NASA would be upset to find out that they don't fight with space aliens. Or do they? The show ran for 13 episodes but was canceled, with the last episode airing on December 13th, 1987. The series was rerun through most of the early 90s on various networks. The toys were originally produced by COLECO, but they were rebranded and produced by Mattel for the overseas market. The originals had the US flag and NASA stickers, while the Mattel ones did not. The Mattel line launched in 1990. While the show and the toys failed to do well in the US, it was popular in both Europe and Asia, where it was rebranded. In February of 2015, the series was released on DVD in the US. I have to wonder if anyone who watched the show as a kid grew up and now works for NASA. Battletech. Battletech, the animated series, was based on the popular war game of the same name. It was the 10th anniversary of the game, so FASA, the owners of Battletech, wanted to expand its reach. They partnered with the studio Saban to do the animated show, and Tyco to make the toys. The show was produced by Saban, the company that published English dub versions of shows like Samurai Pizza Cats and Digimon. Also that Power Rangers show that I hear is pretty popular. The first episode aired on September 10th, 1994. As a way to make it stand out, they decided to do a mix of traditional animation with some futuristic-looking computer animation. The show takes place in the year 3050, where a peaceful region of space is invaded by a group calling themselves the Clans. Major Adam Steiner leads a group of battle mechs to fight back against the Clans. It's unclear as to what ultimately killed the show, if it was too expensive, had poor ratings, or the legal troubles that FASA was dealing with at the time, possibly a combination of all three. Toy Galaxy has a much more in-depth look at the series if you'd like to know more. The show ran for 14 episodes, one of which was a clip show. The last episode aired on December 10th, 1994. A sourcebook companion for the animated series, For Somerset Strikers, was published in 1995. This covered stats and scenarios for tabletop fans to use in their campaigns. All the episodes are on YouTube, and the channel that uploaded them was kind enough to clean them up so they don't look like straight VHS rips. Unfortunately, unless FASA decides to officially release them, this is the best we'll ever get. Well, that's 5 animated shows. I have another few animated ones lined up, with one focusing on some really, really bizarre animated shows that I think you'll enjoy. Stay tuned.